and online opportunities. I talked about cryptocurrency investment and trading and all that. So today is yet another day where today's topic, we are going to speak about leadership and development. And the topic of the day is Rising to Leadership by Minister Moses Anibaba. Moses is the former Regional Director of the British Council Operations in Sub-Saharan Africa, a position he held for so many years, since 2018. With over 20 years in visionary leadership, strategy, and youth empowerment across Europe and Africa, Moses brings you insights on how to grow into positions of leadership. He has served as the country director for the British Council for Ghana and held leadership positions in Romania, Greece, and Zimbabwe, including even working with World Bank projects. He holds an MBA from Durham University and is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants of the UK. He was awarded an OBE, that is Officer of the Order of the British Empire, by Queen Elizabeth II during the 2013 Queen's Year Honours of his work, for his work in brokering corporate partnerships in West Africa. He also has a keen interest in arts and culture. He describes himself as a serial investor in people, worthwhile projects, and property. I describe him as a serial marathoner, because there's no marathon happening in Kenya that Moses has not attended. Welcome, sir. We are privileged to have you, and please, take us through the session.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to connect with all of you. Great to see you. I'm just looking at the number of people joining also, and for a long introduction. So thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you. Thanks, Livia. Thanks, Nancy. The mentorship program has been wonderful, and I know we got people from KICC in Ghana joining as well. So welcome to everybody. Just to say, I don't like doing this, but just to say one or two things, I've had a great career so far. There's a lot more to come, so I ain't done. I've had the opportunity to live in 11 countries, and I've visited, lived, and worked and I've visited about 48 countries. I'm making a list of it around the world. So everything that I'm going to talk today is gleaned from and distilled from those various contexts. And I've sort of kind of come down to the things I'm going to kind of cover today as well. As my current position, and actually I am a serial investor in properties, projects, worthwhile projects, and people, and part of the people is what I'm doing today, and I do a few other things as well. I'm loving it because of what God has done, and more importantly, I have a degree of freedom now than ever, so which is a great thing. All glory to God as well. So thank you. We're gonna try and make this very interactive. I'm gonna try and speak for just about 40 minutes. We're gonna open it up for questions. We will have there's going to be another session around this as well, and I think we mentioned that at the end as well. Leadership is so broad, and I've thought about this, and Nancy and I has talked as well on this subject, and rising to leadership, and you'll understand why. So the next slide, the purpose of this session, and the next one we're going to have, the purpose of this session is really is for you to be deliberate. I would even say very intentional, and as Livia was praying, is about what we do afterwards, but for you to be really deliberate, intentional, focused, and progressive in your actions and your goals for leadership. And you'll understand that in a second as well. We're going to go through some examples, some theory. We're going to look at some of them also next week and today as well. And so, the session, I said rise to leadership because it's not something you jump into. For some people, it takes 12 months. Some people might be 2 years. Some people 10 years. But you're always rising. So rising is not something, leadership is not something you just suddenly wake up and you're in it. You might be whatever, but I think, and that's why I said rising to, because also it reflects where the royals are, where you're going, and where I believe you're still going to go. You're going to be rising in leadership, and you'll understand. And when I say leadership, I'm not talking about positions necessarily. I'm not talking about, okay, you just being the boss, I want to be the orga so I can dominate everybody else. Leadership might actually be leadership in your family, leadership in a team, within a team, you know, where you've got an overarching project or task to do, and you've got a portion within it. So leadership within a team, it might be your work, leadership in a particular sector, you know, education, tech, law, whatever, leadership within a project. And it could be leadership for a particular period of time. It might be short, it might be long, it might be a lifetime as well. So, you know, I think it's important that I clarify that as we go through it as well, that leadership is leadership wherever you are, rising in it. We could be within a team, under a number of people, under one person. It might be leadership of family, in your work, in your sector, whatever you choose to do for a particular period as well. And just go on to the next slide, Nancy, which is around that, you know, leadership is a skill that must be taught. It must be, if you could roll on to the next slide, Nancy, if you can hear me. Okay, so we talked about leadership. Okay, leadership is a skill that must be taught, learned, and developed over time through training, practice, and repetition. And I say that because, you know, I think some of the leadership positions I've been in, or opportunities that I had maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago or 25 years ago or stuff like that, you know, I mean, when I look back on them, I say, oh my goodness, I knew very little about certain bits, you know, and all of those kind of stuff like that. So it's something that must be taught, learned, and developed over time through training, practice, and repetition. And they talk about, you know, about leaders born, or they whatever. I feel everybody can develop in leadership and do. There's some people that are born with certain attributes that enable them to maybe develop faster or outperform others at different stages. That doesn't mean that, you know, if somebody is going up like that, you're not going to go there. Their path is different. Theirs might be 2 years, yours might be 4 years, but you're all moving up, you know. And some people might they might stall at a certain point, and then you might be going past. So we shouldn't be concerned, frazzled, envy of people that may be going up in a particular way, because you stick to your own lane and whatever as well. So that's one bit. Moving on to the next bit, you know, there are lots of stuff around leadership. You know, I mean, we put this slide together when you talk about leadership qualities. I'm reading this book called Psychology of Money, but, you know, I have some other things here. I was looking at, you know, part of my preparation of a week ago. John Maxwell, I've read literally all the books on leadership. Talks about strategy, vision, listening. I even read this one around how to lead, which is a very good book. Talks about decision making. Talks about you name it. You know, managing projects, crisis, motivating. Maybe we'll talk about how you actually do it on one at some stage. But anyway, leadership is quite broad. And there are many concepts there: self-awareness, you know, leading your team, leading others, courage, delegating, influencing. You talk about, what are the leadership qualities, and they're all in there. But, you know, we're going to focus on how you rise to leadership and how you rise in leadership as well. So, and I think this is about, you know, where you are and whatever. So the first question we're going to ask, which is coming up, and we're going to do a quick poll, and Livia is ready. Do you want to be recognized in a leadership role now or in the future? So there's a poll. I want you to, it'd be good to get your answers on that so we can see. So do you want to be recognized in a leadership role now or in the future? You answer yes, no, or not sure. So let's see, so we know where everybody is. And so I hope you've been able to sort of click onto that poll that we're going to do. There are going to be a number of them because this is interactive as well. So do we have the results so far? Livia?
We can't see the poll. We saw it for a moment on the screen and then it disappeared.
And then it went off. Okay, all right, okay. So we need to make sure that you guys are awake. That's why we're doing it quick like that. So Livia is going to do it again.
Once it pops up, just click on it immediately. But also, if you go on the bottom left, on the bottom right of your screen, where we have so many dots, if you click there, you can see the poll, and you're able to vote. Yes, you have 6 votes on yes right now.
Okay. Okay, we need a few more. Okay. Okay, what are we looking at? What's the result so far? Looking at this.
6 votes, yes.
I've launched it again in case anyone wasn't able to vote.
Okay. Or you can type in it'll be good. Okay, type in the message. Okay. So, and Livia, all the people that have voted so far are saying yes. Anybody not sure or no?
No, everyone else is voting yes. I think if I show the results, the poll stops. So yeah, I think we'll give guys a minute.
Okay, we're good. We're good to go on that one. Okay, so good.
Okay.
So that's good. At least we're common ground, and I'm going to ask also a question. Why would you want to be recognized in a leadership role? Why do you want to be recognized in a leadership role? And it will be good to just hear one or two people. Just come on and speak for 30 seconds.
Yeah, and others, you can write a quick answer in the chat, please.
You can write a quick answer, yeah. Okay, anybody? Do you want me to call on somebody from the list? Let's see. Anybody? Why? Why do you want to be recognized in a leadership role? It's a great way to influence people. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's one. Anything else? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any more? Any more? Okay. What's happening here? Okay. Yes, because, yeah. Okay. Okay. You have much to offer. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. So we do have a second poll.
Fred says, because I want to make an impact and stand for people who cannot stand on their own. Robinson says, leadership is a platform to empower others.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, the platform to empower others. Okay, Frederick Wilson. Yeah. Okay. Kenny. All right. Okay. All right. So we have our second poll. Okay. To implement the changes I want to see. Okay. Okay. Who is that?
That's Livia.
That's Livia. Okay. Okay. Hey, you should be scared when Livia says you want to implement the changes she sees. Okay, that's good. Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Can we put up the second poll?
Yes.
Okay. With the
one on benefits.
Yes. Yeah. With the why leadership. Okay. And then the next one. Okay. Which of these benefits of leadership would you prioritize most? And you can put it in the chat box as well. You could try and put in the question up again. Olivier is very fast with lots of things. He's always moving. So, yeah. All right. Which one would you prioritize? Can we hear your feedback? Out of that lot, achievement, these being the benefits and why you're doing it, fulfillment, personal growth, recognition, earn more money, yeah, actually, leaders earn, when you look at some statistics, yeah, leaders do earn more money, and more security, yeah, when in terms of, when there's a crisis or restructuring, they don't get rid of the leaders easily. So I wanted to actually forgot to do this, was to find the statistics about what leaders earn within an organization, how that compares to the rest as well. Okay. Personal growth. Okay, Brian. Okay. What do we have? Which ones, what was coming through on the survey, Livia?
Okay, so we have fulfillment.
Okay.
People, personal growth for people.
Okay, fulfillment, how many?
6.
Okay. Personal growth 4. Okay.
Personal growth 5.
Okay. Okay. Nobody's putting earn more money.
We are shy. Lewis has said he wants more money.
Okay, all right.
So all the others on top of earning more money.
All the others on top of earning more money. Okay. All right. Anything more? Okay. Fulfillment, finance. Okay. Personal growth. Yeah. Okay. There's nothing that there's nothing wrong in any of the answers, as you said, you can have one and have the others. But I just wanted to really give a sort of a kind of basis for why we go into leadership and why it's important that you rise. And as I said, as the objective being very deliberate, intentional about rising in leadership. Yeah. And I think that, I put fulfillment in there, and I just talk a little bit about that for the next 5-7 minutes or so, and then we'll come on to the how you rise in leadership. And I made this statement: you cannot carry out your vision, your goal, your destiny without leadership or some form of leadership. I'm not saying that you can't at all, but I'm just saying without leadership or some form of leadership. And this is not preaching, but I'm going to use a context from the Bible, a story, and then I'll come on to personal, and we'll kind of share that as well. Genesis 37:5-7 talks about Joseph. We all well know. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream, which I've dreamt. There were." Verse 7 says there were binding sheaves. There we were binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed, your sheaf stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. Okay, so that's the story of Joseph as well. And then Joseph then says also again he had another dream. Genesis 37:9 then talks there. Then he dreamed still another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Look, I have dreamt another dream. This time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me. Okay, so that was a dream. He had a vision. He had a dream. Genesis 41:40-41. Don't worry, as I said, this is not preaching, but just to give some context. The New Living New Living Translation says, Genesis 41:40-41. You will be in charge of my court. This is Pharaoh, and my people will take orders from you. Only only I sitting on the throne will have a rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift their hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. So we see the start of the vision. We see the end of the vision in terms of Joseph being prime minister. It is the in-between that is where the interesting bit is and the learning is. And this is where I think is important for not only you, but also for all of us as well. And I'll just mention one or two things about the in-between. Genesis 39 talks about the Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded, this 2-6 NLT version. So the Lord was with Joseph, succeeded in everything he did as he served in the house of the Egyptian master. Note, Potiphar noticed that and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he made Joseph his personal assistant and put him in charge of the entire household and everything he had and he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's house for Joseph's sake. And Verse 6 then says, Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing. Joseph moves from Potiphar's house to the prison. Genesis 39:21 says, but the Lord was with Joseph in the prison, showed him his faithful love, and the Lord made Joseph a favorite with a prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. Genesis 40 verse 1-4 then says, sometimes later, Pharaoh, chief butler and chief baker offended the royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officers, and he put them in prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in the prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. So God gave Joseph a vision, and he had to rise in leadership to get to that point of fulfillment. You know, from Potiphar to the warden, and it was only when I was reading about this that I said, actually, there's three separate people involved there. Potiphar when he was there, the warden, and then the captain of the guards as well, all recognized something and gave him leadership role. And I submit, some of you may argue on this, but I submit that it wasn't the gifting of interpreting dreams in Pharaoh's house or even the prison, because Joseph was not interpreting dreams. I mean, he interpreted dreams in the prison, but he wasn't going around every day interpreting dreams and whatever that they recognized. But it was because of his leadership, his actions, and his character. Those are the things that got him to a position for the main gifting to shine before Pharaoh, and then became prime minister, and for that vision to be fulfilled. So you cannot fulfill God's given vision without some form of leadership or responsibility. And I remember what I said about leadership. So let me give you my own example, and I have many, but I'm conscious of time. You know, I worked for British Council for many years, over 3 decades, different. Okay, I worked for the World Bank in between as well. And, you know, Africa was always my passion. I worked in Europe, I worked in Romania, Ukraine, Turkey, all of those places, lived in those places as well. But, you know, one of the, I remember when I was working, first and foremost, when I was working as country director in Ghana, and then I was in charge of West Africa, and then I did some work working with the private sector, Tullow Oil, the Shells, the BPs, the Totals, and some of the banks as well. That, you know, I started beginning to form this thing that, you know, across the organization, you know, in particular in Africa, there was only maybe 1 or 2 people there's only probably 1 person at the time that was the country director of the operation in the countries. So whenever I traveled across Africa, there were people from Europe, from British that were heading, but no Africans. And it's something that after a while it started brewing, and I was saying, this is strange, because we have competent people in Africa, across Africa, and as an organization that focuses on developing people, we should have people, whatever, as well. And one of the visions that God gave me was to change that landscape. But you see, I wasn't in the right position to do that. I remember talking to other people when I was in a particular role, and they said, yeah, it's been going for years, so many years, 20 years, we've been talking about it and whatever as well. But I could only make the change when I got into the position, and it's one of the kind of drivers, is when I got to the position of saying, okay, you know what? This role to be in charge of all the British Council offices across Africa as well and whatever, I said that it was only when I got into that role that I then said, okay, now I'm in this position. I am now in a position to begin to make a change to that as well. I know Evelyn is on the line. I know from a position where we had one, I actually said, let me try and see where we can get more Africans, not necessarily the natives in the country, to be in charge of all these operations, and for people to see the worth and the talent of our great minds, that whatever. I initially said only maybe 5. By the time I was leaving, we had close to about 10 from a position where we only had 1. Or stuff like that. And I know that the organization can never go back, because they've now seen the beauty, the talent, and whatever of that as well. But you see, I'm saying that as an example, and there are many others as well, that, I could only affect it once I was able to be in a particular position and a place and have some degree of authority and power to affect the change. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't something I did overnight. I thought I would do it within 12 months. It took about 4 or 5 years. There were some challenges, lots of challenges, learned a lot of stuff as well, whatever. So I'm saying this, when you look at the story of Joseph, when you look at just one example I've given, there are many others, to effect the change. And I'm pleased that a lot of you mentioned fulfillment. To fulfill the vision that you have, whatever it is, might be, look, you know what? I want to build a house. I want to do stuff within our society. I want to have this big company. You're going to have to rise in leadership. And so that you're in a position to make those changes and whatever as well, and be able to make it in a way that is sustainable or stuff. I'm not saying you can't make changes, but if you really want to, as I said, when you look at the vision that Joseph had and whatever, he had to rise. He had to rise to a certain point where he was recognized as a leader. That's what got him to the position where he was then in front of Pharaoh, and then the rest is history as well. So there is a place, there is indeed a position, there is indeed a power level of authority needed to carry out our visions and goals, and to that element of fulfillment that you all mentioned there. So how do we write? And we'll have time for question and answer. That's why I want to rush this a little bit so that I can get feedback as well. So that's my that should really, I hope that it really sticks in your mind, that, to really achieve your goals. And we all have our goals. We all have whatever, but we've got to really strive to rise in leadership and be in a leadership. But that doesn't mean that you have to be you can only be the top in order to do it. No, but you're going to have to rise. Some of you talked about influence and whatever, people hearing and so forth as well. Okay, so how do we rise in leadership and whatever? And I've looked at so many things, and I've looked at over the years, even in times when I was in, Ukraine, and I lived there for a while, and all of that, and all of the things that happened, as I said, I distilled this from, and this applies across any context as well. The first being that you must be skilled and you must be a master of it. You must be skilled in something, and being skilled in something means having the knowledge, the experience, the ability to perform a particular task or activity well. It requires a level of proficiency that goes beyond basic competence. Mastering a skill or concept means really achieving a higher level of proficiency or ability to perform it with ease and accuracy. And as I said, it indicates a deep understanding. So, let me say, and I'm going to put somebody on the spot here. I didn't tell her. Livia, who is on the line, who is doing all the stuff behind the scene and coordinates a lot of things. One of the things that, I remember, when she came into the church and all of this kind of stuff, she was great on social media. And Pastor Fred is on the line, and we said, okay, given, she's quite good on whatever tech as well. I know she read whatever at school as well, but then she started. She was putting that responsibility, and then because of that, and because she mastered that area, and I know there are other people that support her and so forth as well, that actually then you start noticing other bits as well. You say, okay, you're now in charge, because she had that particular skill, you do this and whatever, and now she's in charge of that, she's doing other stuff and whatever. And the same thing I can talk about Nancy as well on whatever as well. And there are many people, there are a number of colleagues, people from KICC Ghana, I've seen you online as well. But having a particular skill opens the door and the window. I believe it is a gateway to other things and leadership. And that's why whatever it is, and God has given us gifting. So nobody can say that you don't have a gifting. God did not just create you blind. But being able to develop a skill, and that may be a skill that, that is part of your innate person. It might be something you learn, might be something you're passionate about as well. But skill development, mastering it, honing it, it could even be a language, is therefore key to rising in leadership. And I believe when I look at all the people online, you're at an age and you're at a stage where this should be prime opportunity for you as well. Skill gives you the open door into whatever as well, because after a while, they will be saying, okay, well, I'm looking at whatever that person does, that thing, they do it well. They do. So if we're going to give that responsibility, we're going to give that. And I believe that even with the story of Joseph, people were seeing stuff that Joseph was doing. As I said, he wasn't interpreting dreams for everybody left, right, and center, and all of those kind of. I believe he was doing certain things where they say, okay, you know what? This guy knows how to organize. He knows how to get people together. People listen to him or something, whatever. He's got a particular skill on that. That's where you get noticed. So it's very important that it could be one thing you start with, but you must be skilled in a particular area. And I like Nancy putting in skills, because it is the beginning and it gets you in on whatever as well. So let's move on to the next point. The next point being that, I put in here that if you won't carry the ball, you can't lead the team. If you won't carry the ball, you can't lead the team. And it's a quote from John Maxwell that I remember from a long time. And, all leaders, a leader can give up anything, and you delegate, you assign and whatever, but you cannot give up final responsibility. The responsibility for something stops with you. The buck stops with you. And it's important, absolutely vital, that to rise in leadership, you've got to accept the opportunity, and you've got to accept the responsibility that goes with it. So let me give you an example. Some years back, if I mentioned the year, some of you would say, "Oh, I wasn't even born then." But I was. This was in Greece, and we needed to renovate this building in one of the most expensive areas in Athens as well and whatever. And I was just maybe I was 1, 2, 3. I was maybe the fourth in kind of leadership, and assistant director at the time. And, there was a deputy, there was another deputy before the director at the time. And, they said, okay, we need to do this refurbishment of this entire building, relocate everybody, consolidate and whatever. And they were looking for a project manager to do this. They looked, they couldn't find, they tried to get somebody from London, tried to get somebody, whatever. And then at one meeting, they were saying, no, we haven't been able to recruit somebody, this might whatever. And then I just said, you know what, I could do it. I was 29 or 30, at the time. My middle son was was just born or stuff like that at the time. And I said, I would. And initially they said, oh, really, Moses? I said, yeah, but, and the project turned out to be 1.5 million pounds to manage whatever. But because of that, they initially were saying whatever, and then went away. I said, look, I'll get advice, I'll be consulting, I'll be reporting to the director and whatever as well. And I took on this responsibility. I mean, it was a lot of work. But, in that, I was able to manage all these builders, manage the relocation of over about 80 staff out of the building, all of the stuff that went with it, regulatory, all of that kind of stuff like that. Got exposed to many things. I traveled to Turkey to go look at furniture and all of those kind of stuff like that. And, look, it was hard work, but it was one of the most satisfying things. And I think, and I was thinking about this, is one of the reasons why I'm also, into real estate, because, I know how things start from the beginning, and, just being able to see something that is nothing and then whatever as well. But that was really, there was an opportunity there, but really putting yourself forward and accepting the responsibilities that go with it. I mean, there was one day when the building was supposed to be finished, and we were supposed to open it, and whatever, people were coming from all over the place a week before, and there was a major flooding. So I got a call at 3 a.m. in the morning to say, well, there's fire brigade. I put my head on my hand. I said, oh my goodness, fire brigade. Rushed down to the place, another 45 minutes drive. But there'd been a flooding, we had to do everything again and whatever as well. Those were nerve-wracking times as well. But anyway, so I'm just saying that you have to, if you want to carry the ball, you have to, if you won't carry the ball, you can't lead the team, which is you've got to accept opportunity and you've got to accept the responsibility that goes along with it. The other thing which Nancy's already moving me on is that you've got to stand out and not blend in. You've got to be different. One of the greatest compliments that anyone can give you is to say that you are different. Joseph was different and whatever, and I'll give you some examples. We should talk differently, act differently, perform differently. You must stand out. There should be something about you. If you don't stand out in a group, or if there is not something unique or different in you or how you do things, then you need to do a revaluation, because when you are born with a gifting that nobody else in this entire world has, because you're unique. No one same person is. That's why they can do DNA and match it to your individual, whatever as well. So there should be something different about all of us. And, and leaders stand out because of their uniqueness, no matter how small. People stand out because they smile, because they carry themselves in a particular way, or, their attitude or whatever, no matter what it is, and it's important, listen to this, that, you must be known for something. You must be known at various seasons of your life, wherever you're going, be, uni, past uni, all of that. There should be something about you that stands out, whether it's your smiles, it's your timeliness, it's your thoroughness. People might say, yeah, you're too thorough, relax and whatever. You keep at it, because that's something you do. That will be the point in which people make a reference that, oh, when it comes to this person, you know what, they're absolutely thorough. or stuff. The manner, certainly our beliefs and our values must shine through. So let me give you some example. Let me give you a couple of examples. Again, conscious of time, is that, you know, at one stage in my career, I was known as a problem solver. And, you know, when I went to Ukraine, Turkey, Senegal at the time, from London, and all, hello, Festus, if you can mute your, you know, I was known as a problem solver at the time. Wherever there's crisis, send Moses or whatever as well. But that was what I was, because that stuff I did, and I did well during those times. There was a time when I talked about the building, where when it came to building, after I did this project, people were referring to, oh, in Cyprus, we want to do something. Moses, can you help us? Whatever. And then there was a time when I got so passionate about working with the private sector, and as Nancy mentioned at the beginning, one of the reasons I got awarded the OBE was because of the work that I did with the private sector, and I absolutely loved it. And whatever, nobody had done it in the organization. Worked with Tolo All, biggest private investment for decades, or whatever, 20-30 million pounds. And then there was a period in my life where, you know, in my role in charge of Africa, where I really felt giving people opportunity and letting people thrive. And I talked about changing the face of the leadership across Africa, you know, that was so much whatever, you know. So these are the things that make you stand out. And there's another example where I was invited to address the UK Labour Party conference, you know, and there was this guy called George Alagaya, well famous newscaster who's passed away. There was Neil Kinnock, who was in charge of the Labour Party at one point, and there was a few other people, and they all said their own stuff around whatever. And I then said, you know, for me, you know, it's about young people. All of this that you're talking, and I went and I talked about that. I talked about Africa Matters and whatever. I had so many people come up afterwards and say, yeah, you know, all of these people that are talking, whatever, because you know what? You stuck to what you really believed in and whatever as well. And it was only afterwards that I got to realize that the reason why I got that invitation that many people don't, and I remember I had to fly from Ghana to it, was because, you know, I'd been making this case a long time, and I kept at it. It is something I believe. So I'm saying all of this that, you know, it's a bit like you've got to believe in something, or else you fall for anything. You've got to be known for something, and that helps you in your leadership, right? The last thing which I'll come on to is consistency. Remember consistency. You know, consistency separates good leaders from great leaders as well. When you are consistent, you are noticed. And I believe Joseph was noticed as well. People notice. In fact, people defer to you as well. And, you know, there is a saying that says, show up every day. There's a saying that all things come to him who waits. There's a saying that says that all things come to him who waits. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just the leftovers from the people who got there first. Responsible people show up when they are expected, but highly competent people take it a bit further. They don't show up in the body only. They come ready to play every day, no matter how they feel, no matter what kind of circumstances they face, or how difficult they expect, you know, the situation or the game to actually be. So I wanted to just raise these four things. There are many others that, you know, there's things on diligence, habit, character, being a good follower, reading up. I was showing you all these books that I've got on leadership, and I've got a whole lot upstairs as well. But I wanted to just, these were the ones that kept on coming back to me, and I was saying that these are those. It's about skilling. You know, to rise in leadership, you must be skilled in something. You've got to accept the opportunity and responsibility. You've got to be different, stand out, you know, and be known for something. You know, it might even just be your smiles, it might be whatever, and you've got to be consistent as well. So on that note, we're going to now come on to our last poll, which is around, of these things that I've mentioned, which would you prioritize as the most important out of the four that I've mentioned? Which ones would you prioritize? Be good to just hear, and then we'll wrap up, I'll tell you about the next session, and then we'll go into question and answers. Okay. So which ones would you? Being skilled, accepting responsibility and opportunity, being different, being consistent. Which would you prioritize as the most important out of all four? Okay. Indifferent. Okay. Nancy says being different in the chat. Okay. Others say being consistent. Yeah, Edna. Okay. Being skilled. Yeah, consistency. Okay. Being consistent. Okay. Being consistent is coming up. Being skilled. Yeah, Calvin. Okay. Okay, being skilled as well. Okay. It seems that being skilled seems to be quite accepting responsibility, being skilled, being consistent. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Being different. So, Olivia, where do you think the vote has gone largely?
Being consistent, I think.
Being consistent, yeah. Being consistent. I think, look, there's no wrong answer to any of these. And certain times you feel that actually to accept responsibility, I need to be skilled in some bit, or I need to be, I need to be consistent or whatever as well. And sometimes you start with one, but you must cover the others. You start with being consistent with what you're doing and whatever as well, if you feel you got the skill, and then you move on to, okay, then now I've got all this skill, I'm doing it, and all of this kind. I've got to now accept some responsibility when things have been mentioned and so forth as well, and whatever. So yeah, for all of us, we may be at different levels, or we might start with one, but I think it's important that when you start with one, you've got to apply all the others as well, or apply all of them at the same time. But yeah, okay. So all right. So I think on that note, let us end the session. I know I've kind of whatever, and let's open it up for questions. As I said, I want this to be interactive. And I'll tell you what we will deal with next time as well. And also it depends on what feedback I get as well in terms of what's useful for you. Okay. Nancy, is that okay?
Yes, that's okay.
And you can also write your questions in the chat.
Yes, you can write your questions in the chat. You can raise your answer, your hand, or you can just unmute your mic and ask a question. Anyone to start us off?
Let me put on the light. Oh, you can't see me now. Okay. Any questions?
Frederick is asking, how does leadership influence team performance and decision making, especially in high pressure moments?
How does leadership influence? Okay. Team performance, especially in high whatever. Actually, one of the things that it makes whatever is, I saw this thing about taking decisions in crisis or stuff like that. But yeah, no, I think look, I mean, one of the things that you find any leader, it's about your delivery. And performance is a benchmark in which it's about delivery, and you're put to lead a team, lead an organization, lead a project, whatever it is, so that you perform. You've got to, that's the outcome of that is expected. You've got to deliver on something. I told you about the building project, told you about so many other stuff. So performance is absolutely key to you being recognized as a leader, and it's one of the things that you're put there for whatever. So how do you influence it? I mean, you influence it. I mean, it depends on the context, but you influence it through a number of things. Being very clear about what needs to be done is absolutely key, so that everybody knows what needs to be done. Making sure that you've given people the right task to their ability as well. Making sure you're following up, absolutely key. But for me also, it's really one of the things that leaders must do is that you must inspire people and carry them along with whatever you're saying. So they've got to understand the reason why you're doing the performance, reason why you're going in a particular direction as well. And especially when you're looking in crisis. I mean, I remember during the COVID period that when things were oh my god, terrible, everything shut down, people are all over the place and so forth like that. You're as a leader, you're in the spotlight, because people are looking to you for solutions. They're looking for you. I mean, they take out their frustration because all of this kind of stuff. So during crisis, some leaders they either fall apart or they really rise also. And sometimes, during those times, you've got to be able to, when everybody's heads are all over the place, you've got to have maybe be able to step back and look at things differently as well. And it's so crucial. One of the things that came out of the COVID period around leadership was that, the leadership needed to be kind of different. Command and control wasn't it, because you couldn't control people of where they sat during those particular crisis periods as well. So I think, it's very important. Yeah. Okay. I think I hope I've answered that one. Okay. What's the next question, Nancy? There's quite a number of them.
Yeah, Grace is asking, how do you monitor the performance of individual team members?
Wow.
As a leader.
How do you monitor? I think some people, some leaders are very, leaders are on your case every time, And I personally believe is that somebody who is on your neck all the time, I don't think that's great. I don't think that's actually effective leadership, because what happens when they're not there? But when you have a manager or leader that is always on your case all the time, it's a number of reasons. One, they don't trust. Number two, they haven't properly done an assessment. So, for instance, Nancy and I, we talked, Livia and I, in the lead up to this, whatever, and we talked about certain things that I needed to do, certain things that I needed Nancy to do, and I said, okay, now I'll send this thing to you. She put together the presentation that you're seeing, so beautifully done and all of that, and I wasn't like, okay, Nancy, where is it coming, whatever, because one, I had confidence in her. Two, it was very clear what I had asked her to do. And before you give that confidence and place that trust, you need to make an assessment. You need to say, okay, is Nancy the person to do this role? Let me talk to you, all of this kind of stuff. Do you understand that, do you understand the implications if we don't get it by this time? So I think clarifying the goal, being able for you as a leader to make a good assessment about, okay, the person that I'm entrusting this to, whatever. And sometimes leaders need to, because we're all different, what I would do if I'm giving it out to Nancy or whatever would be different from if I was doing it. And sometimes leaders, they want you to give it exactly as they're doing, and that's complete rubbish. complete rubbish, because they're not you. And you don't want clones. Actually, you want people who bring different talents and whatever to it. They're still working on that as well. So that's where I feel, I hope I've answered that question. So I think, it's really about the leader and being able to assess properly, make sure that they're clear about what they're asking the person to do as well, and whatever. And also knowing that actually I've asked this person to do this, they're not going to do it exactly as I want it, but they will do it even better and whatever as well. And that's when they shine as well. Okay, so I'll stop there.
Okay, the next one, Kamuela is asking, can people you lead make your leadership appear insignificant, yet you are giving it all your all?
Oh, well, to make you insignificant. I mean, if there's nobody following you, you're not leading. So that's one thing. Leader, if you're turning around and there's nobody, you're leading yourself or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, you if you're going to be leading a team of people and you're not leading yourself, there's got to be a connection there. There's got to be connected. Can the people make you insignificant or make your leadership whatever? Then, again, it's in who you choose. And sometimes we're giving people, they might say, Pastor Fred might say, okay, Don, you're in charge and you have X, Y, and Z and whatever, but, going back to the last question, you've got to be able to take time to understand the people you're leading, to clarify why we're doing what we're doing, and so that people are on board, because if they're not following you, then you're just going on a walk by yourself as well. So for me, it's making sure that there is a connection. The connection may not be 100%, but it should be there to at least move you forward or stuff like that as well. And if people are not following or not whatever, or making you look weak or stuff like, then you've got to take responsibility for it. You got to take responsibility. There was a time when, people sometimes they come into certain roles and the first thing they fire everybody and, say, okay, I'm bringing my own people. They haven't really led people. The greatest joy you can have is to take somebody from where they are and through motivation, communication, clarifying, whatever, to move them to their potential, because no matter how bad somebody is, there's something good about them, and it's about you recognizing it and being able to say, okay, with what you've got, you could do X amount or whatever as well. So, and yeah, there's no best example than seeing somebody that you've mentored, you worked with and whatever, and they shine more than you. I mean, that's what leadership should be about. I always say this, that leadership should be in a position where, look, they make you look redundant when you've built up people and they can run the show by themselves. That's what I want, and I could be lying on the beach doing my other stuff because you built them up. And that's what leadership should be all about.
Thank you, Minister Moses. One of my key takeaways today has been standing out. You must be known for something. And Evelyn is asking, at any given season of our lives, we must be known for something, as you've said. So how does one identify that one thing that is key for a particular season?
Well, I mean, I think, it's a very important question, Evelyn. And, sometimes we feel that, we're not, there's certain times when certain things are happening and you feel that you're not shining. And you say, oh, maybe other people are crowding out what you're doing and other people's voices and all of those kind of stuff like that. And I've been in boardrooms, team meetings, being part of leadership group where, there are some people who are doing all the talking all the time. But, sometimes, you need to be perceptive, you need to be quiet, and you utter what you feel and what you know and what you're really kind of the truth. And it may sound, I don't want to sound bit too, sort of whatever, because I know this works in in real life. That, you know, over time, because you have been constant with what you're doing and how you do those things, people will notice. You know, that I think there was a time when I think, you know, I was in a particular leadership group for a number of times, and you know, I would say it seemed that other people used to get the airspace and all of that kind of stuff like that. But I think it was something like 2 years later, I was moving on to another leadership group, and one of the things that people said, you know, whenever you come on, the question you always ask is about the people, and you know, you always whatever. And I didn't know that. You always, you know, when we're talking about all of this, you always bring it down to people and the people on the ground or whatever. And for that, you know, oh my goodness, And so sometimes, Evelyn, it may not seem that you are being recognized for it, but again, you've got to be genuine in what you're doing and be consistent with it, because you're not doing it for show's sake. You're doing it because this is what you're really passionate about, what you believe in, and it eventually shows. I've given the example of somebody who was in the meeting. He was in charge of Coca-Cola for a number of years and whatever. And they, you know, he talked the way he talked. He was an African. He was on all these whatever. And people said to him after a while, oh my goodness, when you come on, you know, we all talk with a particular voice because we all trained in a particular way and went to different schools in Europe and But when you talk with passion, you talk authentic. Oh my goodness, we're going to miss that, You're different. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope it answered your question, Evelyn.
Is that okay? Good. Now, I think we are going to take one last question for today. Let me say two last ones, because we have Minister Moses in another session in a week or two. Then he can answer the rest. I've recorded them down. So Olivia is asking, when in a position of leadership and things go wrong due to a team member's mistake, how do you remain accountable while also showing that you are still in control of the team?
How do you remain accountable? Whatever cock-up it is, you take ownership of it. I mean, you know, absolutely. This one, I don't, whatever it is, because you're accountable, you know, you take ownership of it. You take whatever. You can't be saying, you know, the reason why I didn't deliver on this because somebody did that on whatever or whatever. You start off with saying, you know what? We messed up on this one because X, Y, and Z happened. You can not personalize things. You can say, well, you know, the reason why we did not meet this goal is because we started too late. And you know, I did not monitor that this bit was not being done or whatever as well. Without saying, well, actually, you know what? It's because it's Winnie that did that and because you're going down to whatever, you're not accepting responsibility. And there are many things that have happened. Oh my goodness, where I think, you know, I know it is down to somebody's cock up. There was a situation where we were closing one office and they were supposed to not make the announcement globally. One person, you know, in one of the countries made the announcement on social media. And then they said, what the heck, Moses, is going on? How come this has gone out or whatever? I didn't say, oh, it's because of one person down there. I said, you know, Lord, that should not have happened. And whatever, we will try and fix it and whatever. You know, because when you take responsibility, a number of things happen. The person that makes that mistake, they know what they did not do or whatever. And we all make mistakes. You know, so when you do not shame them or do I'm not saying you don't deal with them, you deal with them, whatever, but you don't deal with them. When they try and then do as much as possible to try and rectify it. Number two, your credibility as a leader goes up because they know that, you know, this person has got my back. Number three, what tends to happen most of the time is that news will get around that, oh, it's not because Moses didn't do what he did, but because somebody else, whatever. But yet, Moses did not put that person out to shame. Others will be saying, you know what? That, because in the world that we're in, everybody wants to put everybody under the boss and all of those kind of stuff like that or whatever. That's the way the corporate world, and that's why when we read Romans 12:11, that don't be conformed to this world or whatever. So they're expecting that to happen, and you haven't done that, you're noticed as a leader. So accepting that responsibility, absolutely key. Trying to deal with it, yes, and whatever, and deal with the situation without actually, whatever the person, whatever. Later on, if the person is not the right person to be in that role or whatever, you could train or move them aside or whatever, but the buck stops with you. End of story. Yeah. And we need more leaders that accept that, you know what? We didn't achieve this, I didn't whatever, we messed up on this bit and whatever as well. That for me is more truthful than trying to blame it on somebody, when you're the leader.
Okay, one last one, Minister Moses. Sister Miriam asks, what does it truly mean to be an effective leader in today's world where there is an overwhelming flow of information that is constantly surrounding us?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, and I think, there's something about what you define as being effective, and there's some core things, Sister Miriam, you got to deliver you got to perform, you got to deliver, and if you're being put in whatever, you got to deliver, and that you shouldn't shy away from and all of these things. But, for me, what is now coming up as leadership, whatever is where, and this is where maybe I am biased in this bit, is that leadership really is about empowering and releasing other people. And, that's where the heart of leadership should be, to be honest. It should be where you're empowering others to be the best that they can be, to whatever. That's where leadership is. We have problems of succession of leadership across Africa. It's because people are not thinking about developing the people around them. There's a book here called by Robert Maxwell called, and one of the things said, developing the leaders around you. Jesus did that, and the rest, whatever as well. So for me, the heart of leadership must be about making sure that you're developing leaders. And that's what one of the reasons when I mentioned to Pastor Andy, I was doing this thing for the mentorship things. And no, we got leaders in Ghana, they must join and all of that. And it's about developing that, because your true test is, who is the person that will take over from me? Who are the people that, that can do this role with me moving on to something else as well? And if you are not developing leaders, then you failed as well. So I maybe, as I said, it's a slightly biased thing. I'm not watering down the fact that you must deliver on what is being whatever, but there must now be more on developing leaders, giving people opportunity, unleashing them and whatever, because then, not only is it satisfying, but you can move on. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not relevant. It's just that you move on to something else, and people will still come to you. I have so many people who reach out to me now, say, oh, Moses, you help me this, you help me that, all of that. But I've moved on to other stuff. And it's not that I'm waiting for them and say, this person has passed. No. And I think that's where effective leadership should be going as well. It's not just about the numbers and the delivery, it's about that as well. And you talk to business leaders, one of their biggest issue is about people they can trust, people they can hand over things to. All of that is about that. And that's where leadership, and I'll be talking maybe a little bit about this in the next session, because I will be talking a little bit about, the next trends, what is the latest trend in leadership, as Nancy has put up, the current thinking on leadership, and what challenges do you face, how can we address them? So that's the thing that we're going to be looking at where leadership is going at the moment. Emotional intelligence is a big thing. Some of the things that I was just talking about, Sister Miriam, is now what is now occupying people's minds. So I'll talk a little bit about those later. And then going on to what are the challenges you face in your own space now and whatever, so we could talk more about that. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Sister Miriam. Okay. All right. Good. All right, Nancy. Thank you. I hope that's been useful, and you've learned a few things. Again, the purpose is for you to really be deliberate and intentional about this arising in leadership and what you need to do or stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I can see you guys.
All right.
Really
Good seeing you all. I didn't get to see all the people that joined later. We'll talk. Likely, as I said, we've got the date 10th of July for the next session on that. And if there's anything in particular you want us to address, send them through, put it in the chat. Nancy's still looking at that, and some of those questions we didn't answer, and we can pick them up also.